Sometimes the things we do seem very magical, but when we dig in, they're not that magical at all. Let's mash on that.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Asp.Net Monsters. I'm Dave Paquette, and today James Chambers will be talking to us about where exactly the state is stored when you're using durable functions and what kind of options we have.
Yeah, so it does kind of feel like magical when you just create a new project and everything starts to work and there isn't any magic. It's the answer is really simple. It's saved in the cloud. This has been another episode of
Of
the
course.
ASP.NET Monsters. No, we're gonna have a look here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just bring us into back to the code that we were looking at a couple of weeks ago with the orchestrator that was coordinating an order that was progressing through a bake shop. So if you didn't catch the earlier episodes, it's gonna look something like this. There are a couple of screens that we've got. One of them is the admin view. One of them is the client view. And when the client places an order, and keeping in mind, of course, that you're typically going to do a lot more than just click a place order button, but this at least lets us get set up. So we click on place order, and then things start going behind the scenes if everything is working properly. It looks like I may not be working properly. Might have an edit point here. Let's have a look and see if I can get this going here. Get this guy running again. There we go. Apparently you do need to have your durable function project running in the background, Dave. It's like
Yep.
pro tip.
The back end does have to be there.
It does, so that when you place an order, things actually happen. So I see a bunch of stuff going on in the background already. I can see if I bring this back in, there is a bunch that's already happened in terms of the order kind of hitting the back end service, and now it's waiting for us to do something. So if I flip over to my admin piece and I just kind of hit refresh, it allows me to select an order. We can see some more logs going on here as I invoke some of those things and some of those methods that we have processing. And then when I click on mark order as scaled out, a whole bunch of more stuff starts to happen. The client gets updated about the status of the order. And in this particular case, it's just sitting on 3-second triggers to just 3-second timers to just cycle through the order and complete. However, when in a more real scenario, there would be a lot more things going on, probably interacting from the background. The perfect example of this is, the pizza place when you order the pizza and it tells you that Braden has started your order and Sarah has put it in the oven and Keith is cutting the pizza. I feel like Keith would be a good person to cut pizza. I don't know. Do you
I
know any
think so.
Keiths?
I
Do you
think
know
he could
any Keiths?
handle it. I know a few Keiths, and I think that's kind of their forte, actually, is cutting pizza.
They're good with a blade. What can you say?
They are.
Okay, but when we actually hit place order, there's obviously something going on here, because it's not as though something was sitting in a loop or in just in a state where it was just waiting for the next piece to come in. It
Yeah,
wasn't
like I
really.
hope that there's the state, right, of the order and where it's at in the process. And I hope it's not just like sitting in memory, because if my server goes down, like it's gone then, right?
Right, then you lose it. And do you know what? Actually, I remember in 1999 when I was writing it was a VB6 DLL that I was writing. It was a shopping cart, and we actually held the order in memory. We were holding the shopping cart in memory back then, and yeah, it was kind of brutal. We were learning a lot back then about how things worked and scaled. It was not good time, but the shopping cart DLL was actually keeping things in memory. This is obviously that would not fly today. The standard and the expectation of the end user is much higher. So obviously you're right. It's storing the state somewhere. So let's have a look at that actually. And I'm going to pull in, I have my storage explorer up and running, and let me just close this all down here, or sorry, bring this all over here. What I've done is I've actually, yeah, the short answer is when you start up the durable functions project. It's basically using a storage account, and locally we're just using the Azurite emulator. That's what kind of the default kit is now when you download Visual Studio. The old storage emulator has been deprecated in favor of Azurite, and of course this is fairly good parity with what's actually happening when you deploy to the cloud. So the transition is very, very seamless, and you can just move it out directly out to to Azure, and things just work, provided you give it a storage account connection string. So pretty easy, pretty easy stuff to go there. So I'm gonna just look at some of these tables here. In this particular case, I have a series of functions, and these are all completed. These are past ones that I've done. I'm going to place another order, and it's going to go back to that waiting to start order. And after it's accepted, we're just going to wait to scale it out. So when I refresh over here, I'm waiting on, this is that new order that just came in. We can check the order ID and instance ID. It's that same one that's right up here. So I want to, before I mark that as scaled out and watch it start to proceed through that process, I'm just going to hit refresh quickly, and I can see this running function. This is the one that...
Can you try zooming in there? I don't know if this app supports it, but just like a control plus zoom in.
Let me see. We'll try a couple of things there. Oh, there's a control plus. Okay, there we go. And I'll minimize this side over here. Just trust that I'm not doing any kung fu magic over there. So in this particular case, I have my running function. And there's you can, like, because these are tables, there's these things happening in the background with partition key and row key. And some of these things are actually configurable behind the scenes when you start messing with the storage providers directly. So there's a task hub name in here. Now, it's important to kind of start to see these things. We had set a custom status, and you can view the earlier episode for that, but we created an object that is getting serialized and plunked right into here. And that's actually the update that's being sent out. So began processing order valued at 128, that order accepted. You can see here that is exactly what's, that custom status is what's being stored here as well. There's no completion time. There's no output yet because the function has not completed. And then we've got the input object that we have as well. So it's really not that magical. We have a couple of JSON strings these serialized objects that are just being put in table storage in a very, kind of sensical kind of approach, broken down into a couple of fields, the same fields that you can access when interacting with the durable functions context. So that's kind of the gist of it. Now, if I go to the other table here, I have the test hub name history. These are all of the events that are firing, and there's quite a few of them, and I'll explain that in a second. But basically, these are all of the, anytime any of these timers fire and things get completed on the in or the out of any of those invocations, there's stuff getting dropped in this log, and this is the history, the detail of what you would be able to use to help determine what might be going sideways when you're trying to debug. So there's a lot more information here, but it is still very, we've got some stuff that's running here. We've got the inputs and the data that we would expect to see. These are the things that are being passed through each of those iterations. And we can actually go back and see these different, orchestrator started and completed, timer fired, timer created. Whenever of these events happen, these are being logged out to this table. Now, I have right now 44 items. So I'm going to go back and just hit mark order as scaled out. Now on the processing side, this starts dropping events like crazy. And every time I hit refresh, as this thing goes through, I've gone from 60 to 68. And now 72, the order has shipped. So that's the end of that flow. So I think it added about 30, maybe 28 different rows just to get through that one particular function. So lots of information there, lots of stuff to grok. Not really magical. It saves it, as I said before, kind of in a way that you would anticipate. Dave, you'd posed another question though, in terms of what if I want to store it somewhere else? Because that was one of the questions that you had.
Could we maybe just unpack this a little bit too?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we, I'm just trying to make sure I understand it in my head here. So the order got created by, or order was placed by like a user somewhere that
Right.
initiated this workflow, and then it got scaled out, which is a baking term, right? Not
The
like a
baking version of
server
scaled out.
scale out that
That's right.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that was another like user initiated action, the scale out. And then you had a bunch of timer actions that happened as part of your workflow that just kind of simulated it going through these other steps, right?
That's right. Each of these calls that we had in here, we were, so there's these wait for
So,
complete and then et cetera, et cetera. Yes.
so those external events that are like the ones that you're waiting for, in this case, a user to click a button, and then the timer events, those are all like state changes within your workflow in a way that are getting logged in that table that you were just showing us.
Right, exactly. And so the
Oh,
state changes themselves, the fact that the change happens, that is stored in that table, but the data at each of those steps is not. So we're
okay.
not getting that payload here. It's only being stored in our in the current status of the workflow, which we can read here. So we've got our custom
Got it.
status and the actual input. Of course, the output gets
Oh,
updated as well. And now
yeah.
when I'm looking back at this here, I did think of something else to show you, and it has slipped my mind. If it comes back, then we will. Oh, right. Just wanted to show you as well. The partition key is actually in here showing us for that order. So that was the B09 order. So it's actually splicing that data out for us and
Right.
keeping the each of the interactions together. There's a Sentinel record, and then there's these like every interaction, every state change that happens in here. I haven't quite yet gone through to check and see what these event IDs relate to, but it seems to be either there is a negative number and there's some relation to this is played but not a strong one, so I'm not quite sure where this is at, but I'm sure if we dove into the event types we could evaluate this and figure this out
Yeah.
what's actually going
But it's
on.
easy enough to query by that partition key, which you
Exactly.
know that's your orchestration ID, and then just sort by your, I guess there's a row key probably that sorts it, or by timestamp to see the history of everything that happened.
Exactly, and
Cool.
we see that progression going all the way through. The Sentinel is out of sorts in the row key, and I'm interested in knowing what that's actually being used for. There's it has a checkpoint completed timestamp, so maybe that's just what it's using to keep track of the last thing that happened. Part of the um, keeping different things from being played more than one time or something. What's the term I'm looking for? Making sure it's only run one time.
Oh, the item potency.
Item
Is that the
potency.
word?
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So maybe it has something to do with that. That's actually something I might take away as a bit of homework. Okay.
Cool. So my
Um,
follow-up question, I guess,
mhm.
where you were going before was, what if I don't want to store this in table storage?
Right. Okay. So to the cloud. We're actually going to have a look here and see. I believe if I have I will pull in here order processing. What I have here is a couple of things that we're going to need to do. First of all, we're going to need to add. So we do have a couple of options, and maybe what I'll do really quickly is show you the wonderful options that we have for that are just provided in the docs. And so, first of all, we were in the just using the Azure storage, and it's the one that's kind of configured by default. There's nothing we need to do. There's these pros and cons, and there's a comparison table here. So we'll put the link to this doc out in the description. There's a couple of caveats. For example, right now, if you're using something other than .NET, you may not be able to use these other providers. And these other providers for Netherite and SQL Server are actually in preview. So Netherite is actually really interesting. It is a preview storage provider. So Azure Storage ships by default. We get the table storage properties that goes out to the cloud. Super easy. Just need the connection string. Netherite is built on top of Faster, which we're going to talk about, I believe, on the show. But it's still in prototype. It's kind of cool because the name Netherite comes from my favorite metaverse, Minecraft. So this is a new thing. It seems like crazy scalable. It's built on Azure Event Hubs, and then uses page blobs in the backend. So it's like the throughput on this is going to be absolutely like phenomenal through the roof. But that might not be for everybody. That's there's probably going to be costs associated with that, and it may not be. I mean, mind you, it says significantly higher throughput at lower costs compared to. So we'll need to see. Right now, this one isn't available with consumption, so that might steer you towards Azure Storage instead. There's other things like that, and I believe that there are some base fees in terms of connecting with Azure Event Hub. So you'd have to look at all the pricing stuff. Do you know anybody who has any experience with pricing, Dave, at all? We probably
Maybe,
know some people. We probably know
maybe.
some people who can help us with pricing. The other option is Microsoft SQL Server. So this one gives you the ability to use a disconnected environment. So if you are running this, maybe with you want it to be stored. Some people still have the on-prem SQL licenses, and they've got a channel set up directly to the cloud, and they are still connecting to their own server farm, and that's the SQL licensing and environment that they want to use. They want data sovereignty. There might be government or regulatory requirements for them to use something other than a SQL Server that's available in the cloud, and this actually supports it. So you can use it with any on-premise or cloud-hosted deployment of SQL Server. So that gives you that option. And while I haven't done it yet, Dave, we're gonna give this a try. We're gonna try and hook this up to Microsoft SQL Server and see how easy this is. So I know first of all the thing that we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to add the Azure Functions, the Durable Task SQL Server Azure Functions package. So I'm just going to go in here, and I mean I could do it from the command line. I've already got Visual Studio up and running, so I'm just going to manage NuGet packages. We'll go to browse, we'll put this guy in, and we're going to include pre-releases because this one is not yet
Still in
released.
preview, right?
Still in preview. It's a beta, so I have to install that guy. And we'll see if it gives us any if it'll launch and tell us what to do, or if we're just going to have to work our way through it. Yeah, that's okay.
It's good to me. Oh,
Running into a couple of things here. A package downgrade. So we've got maybe something here that
I think you need to update your. If you go to updates, it looks like maybe there's a new version of
there's
the
an
durable
update.
tasks that you
There
need
we
to
go.
include.
Let's get that. Whoa. Team solve this. Team solve this.
I love when we do things for the first time while we're recording.
Yeah, there's like zero risk. It's
Zero risk.
zero
Always
risk.
works first time.
Okay. Try this guy again, and it's oh, sure. Let's see what it does.
Cool. Why not?
Why not?
Update all the things.
Here we go, and I'm going to check and see if that's still going to let us. If all is going well, this should just run again, or should at least compile nicely. So I'm gonna give that a try. Make sure the restore and the build still works. We'll try to run. We'll invoke it one time, make sure it's still working, even though we haven't retargeted the back end here. So the idea is that we're going to go to that host.json file, and we're going to modify it so that we point the locked by func. So I have something.
Something's still running there.
There we go. Close that guy down. There we go. It looked like it built fine. There it goes. No problem. So the idea is going to be now we're going to tell it now that it's running and we know that it's working still. Maybe I should even just do a little sanity check with the
browser. Yeah, make sure it still runs and still points to table storage like we expect it to.
Just have to find that browser. There we go. So I'll pull up our storage provider. We'll go back to this instance here. I'm going to refresh it. So we have 5 in here. I'm going to place an order. And when I refresh, I should see a 6th row.
Fantastic.
Okay, excellent. So that's where that's running right now. And now we're just going to pull that order out from under our customers. Maybe don't do this in your production environment. Make storage
No, do it in someone
decisions.
else's production environment.
I like that. I like that. Okay, so this guy is we've got our API off. We're gonna go into our host.json file, and I'm gonna pop back over to my notes here because I had my connection string all ready to go. And essentially, the update that we're doing is like I've got my logging, I've got my version, that's in here, but I'm gonna set up a connection string, which I may have. Oh, I guess we just want to set up a connection string here. So, um, what we're going to do is say use the SQL DB connection. And I feel like in our, and we're going to have to put this guy in somewhere as well. So we're going to figure this out. We're going to add this extension in here. And that looks good. And we're going to tell it to use the connection string named SQL DB connection. And so now when I go into my local settings.json, there is a Azure Web Jobs storage. Now I'm going to put in SQL connection. I think I got this right. And
Good so far, I think.
Then I'm going to take that in there, and we're going to set this up. So basically what we've done is we've added another key to our configuration settings, and then we've told the durable task storage provider extension to use the SQL DB connection. So if all goes well, we should see some good action here. Now I'm going to pull up SSMS really quickly. I'm going to make sure that I have the database. There's actually a flag that we can use with the extension to create the database if it doesn't exist. But I'm actually going to just take a shortcut here and make sure that I have the database already created, just so that I'm not quite fighting that demon as we navigate that space.
Sounds like a good plan.
New database, and we will call this order processing. The last thing I want to do is start debugging SQL Server permissions in the middle of this already rocky show. Okay, so it's not the company though. It's me. It's not you, Dave. It's me. Local settings. I called it order processing. That is the name of my database. I think we're ready to give this a try. So
do it.
We're going to run this. Okay, no SQL connection string configuration was found for the absent in the environment variable SQL DB connection. So it is unable to find the connection string. Let us sort that out. I wonder if there is a naming convention or something that we need to add.
It said it was looking for like an environment variable with that name, right, and anything in the values should have been picked up there.
Yeah, so SQL DB connection, and that is there. So let me just check and see. We wouldn't have any user secrets here that would be in play. What else could that be? Well, I will try to get this. We'll give it another minute or two here to see if we can get this running, and then maybe we'll just say it's close, and we'll do a fault. Oh, look at that! I do have. Hopefully that doesn't. It's possible that was an invalid local settings because I did have an extra comma.
Possible,
there.
Yeah.
It might be picky about that, so. I didn't see all the errors that went by on us. Hey,
there you go.
That was it.
We were looking at the last error, but I bet the first error was that it wasn't able to load local settings JSON.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure that that's probably what what was. So I'm glad we had another look at that. And now let us return to our page. I'm going to go back to localhost. Now I guess what's going to be interesting to see here is what happens in the database. So in the tables here, already have some payload here. And we'll have to explore this together as this happens. But my guess would be that we can probably check the history and it'll be empty because that would be very similar to what we were looking at. And then the instances as well. And that is there. It looks like it has some other information in here that it's going to use for new events and tasks. So probably some of the stuff that's happening behind the scenes we're not seeing maybe by default with the default storage provider. It's a little bit more explicit and probably a little bit more durable as a result by being in the database. So now when I place an order, I'm going to go back and we're going to waiting for that order to
Guessing
start.
we're going to see an instance.
Yeah. And there we go. So there's our
Cool.
those pieces coming into play already. So including our history with a sequence number. So it's stored a little bit differently, but we still have most of the same pieces in there. We've got some attributing back to the name. There's some payload information, visible time, et cetera, et cetera. And when we come in
What
here,
is that payload? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, the payload table. Let's have a
Yeah,
look at that.
let's take at that after.
And then here we see much of the same information that we had before, except do you see what's missing is custom status. And no, I can't seem to increase the view on this size. No, so I apologize.
No,
I know
not
this is a
very
little bit
easily.
smaller, but we've got payloads, and I would be willing to bet that there it is. So
It is, and it is stored as JSON line.
stored
Cool.
as JSON, and there is the payload ID. So I think that when we went back, if we go back to here, we're going to see, rather than seeing the, there it is, input payload ID and custom status payload ID. So rather than having the JSON here, it's stored off in a separate table. So some interesting stuff there. Versions. There we go. I think that's just the version of the library we're using, to be honest. That doesn't have anything to do with our data. So so some interesting things in there. And otherwise, I believe if I go over here to our admin page and we pull up the order that's there, market is scaled out, we should see this progressing as we expect. There we go. So I'll come back over here and we'll have a little peek again. So there we go. Payload was updated. It's actually completed. We see each of the outputs listed separately as well. So rather than a string of JSON, just with the comma separated values, this actually has the different values saved out as text into a part of that payload table. And then, of course, all of our many events that fire in order to get us through from one end to the other. There we go.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, if you were wondering where the magic is, the magic's in the music. It is not in durable functions. Durable functions is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and it was relatively easy to switch providers there, which was pretty cool. And it looks like there's some interesting providers kind of on the horizon.
On the horizon as well.
Yeah, something we can look into.
Just watch your commas, folks.
That's right. One extra comma is all it takes for the whole thing to fall apart.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, thanks so much for taking us through this, James. And thanks everyone for joining. And we'll see you again another time on the Asp.Net Monsters.
Remember to like, comment, and share. Ask those questions down below, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Dave.
Bye.